Okay, hello everyone, and this is OK here, and we have an unusual stream today because instead of Crazy House, we're going to be talking about Atomic. And I'm going to be giving an introduction to Atomic. We've done that before, but much more standard Atomic with lots of opening ideas. So, to begin with, in the first few moves of the opening, the purpose is to just go for mate. And the best pieces to go for mate are the knight and the queen. So the most common first move in Atomic is knight f3, and the simple plan is to get to e5, where you have a fork on d7 and f7. Hi there, Vlad. And that would be checkmate. So it's an immediate mate threat. And there are not that many ways to protect against it. And another very strong move is actually e3, because the aim is to get to h5, threatening checkmate, and even if that's defended, to then go to d5 with the fork, which can't be stopped. So black has to do something to block this, either g6 or something to show that this fork won't work. So either a prophylactic g6 or the much better move against e3 is just the immediate e6. So he can come then to h5 and we meet h5 with g6 and this fork doesn't follow on. Hi there, Abhijit Go, Blindfold Chess on YouTube. Great to see you. So we have to remember against e3 not to fall into going knight f. Actually, knight f6 works, but e3 e6 is the strongest response. But okay, knight f3. In fact, against e3 f6. Sorry, that's the blunder I wanted to talk about. Then this trick will work. And it's suddenly a fork and black would be completely lost. So against e3 one has to remember to go e6 to protect against the queen fork. Against knight f3 you have to stop the knight coming here. So f6 is the most common, but not the only move. So d6, it turns out, doesn't work because then the knight would come here, you then have to push the f-pawn, the knight comes here, and you're losing the queen. So the game might continue something like this, and the queen is provided some kind of escape for itself, and it's going to be checkmate in a few moves. The only other move which is perhaps playable is e5 against f6, but then knight g5, f5, and d4. I mean, the problem with this is white is just going to have a knight just blocking up his development, so there's no compensation. And this is why basically against knight f3 everyone goes f6. So unlike in standard chess where people discourage f6, in Atomic you basically have to play f6 to stop this knight coming to e5, or to stop it invading. If you just played e5, it's not quite strong enough. Now against e3, the most common move and the move the engine often recommends is e6. And Bakuz says, I'm not sure streaming live is the best way to keep a prep a secret. So this is actually a study I've made actually post-match. I mean, I organized it fully after the match, all the prep I'd been doing for both the Crazy House, not the Atomic League, and for the Atomic World Championship, where I was playing in round 1 and almost beat a 2,000 player, but in the end went down 6-3. So e6 is the most common move in this position, and just to show you the real main line in this position, if you just look at the most common move played in the opening explorer, it's knight d4, and the knight is threatening to come here or here. The reason why this is powerful, by the way, is because if you do this, there's this check, and then this here is again that fork. So c6 is played, and that actually stops the fork because it protects d5 square. And the most common line played is takes, queen here check, g6, and this line is often known as spamming, this is also known as the hook maneuver. It looks like you're giving up the queen because you can just take it for a knight, but there's a trap. The bishop comes out, king has to run away, and white gets the queen back. And the way it usually continues is black takes on h2, white might go b4 just to and and oh, that would be, oh yes, I see, that's a mate threat, so he has to defend, and then he's protecting against this. So in this position, white has basically got an advantage, and black is groveling for a draw. And black can get a draw, but the method of getting a draw is to prevent white from ever swapping this dark squared bishop with any pawn or with any piece. And if he can't swap it, then the bishop's just useless. It can wander around the board, but it can never do anything. So that's the kind of tactic. Baku says, I played Atomic a little bit, and even though I did fairly well, I didn't enjoy it all that much. RKQ says, the classic queen sacrifice. Yeah, so I have played this a bit, and you can grovel for a draw, but it's hard, and it's unclear at the highest level whether it's possible. So the really interesting move is after knight f3, f6, e3, instead of going e6, to go d5, and that's what all the cool guys do. That's what all the 2000 plus players do. They go d5. So I'm just giving a little bit of introduction in general, and then I'm going to give the specific prep for each of my opponents. So d5 is, I'd always play d6, so if they looked at my history they'll see e6, but I was prepping for d5. So just as an example game, knight g5 takes, queen here check, pawn here, queen here, bishop d6. This is all very standard, and then white tries to win a piece by taking a piece and a pawn by taking here, but black goes here to stop the bishop invading into the black position. And okay, so he tries to win a piece and a pawn. White can block it. Why not block with the pawn? Maybe blocking with the pawn opens up this diagonal too much, I'm not sure. But apparently knight e4 is the main line, takes here, wins a piece. And this game is all about this open f-file. Both sides have got an open f-file, and there's a lot of play that goes on along this open f-file. And this is just a sample game. Castles, knight f6, bishop g4 check, king b8. Huh. I'm not quite sure why right resigned in that position. King b8 is fine. But what about knight takes g4? Knight takes g4 is actually, knight takes g4 doesn't work because it's simply white just does this to try and develop. Rooks get exchanged off, and you get an endgame where black is actually a pawn down. So yeah, so this is just a sample game, but it just shows you have to be. It's still difficult for black because if everything exchanges off, black is a pawn down. So he has to try and keep the pieces on the board. But at least there's lots of play along this open f-file, so it's interesting. So we've seen knight f3, f6. But there's another way of playing which allows white to go along the main line. And it's in this position. Instead of taking the knight and allowing this queen hook here, 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 instead of doing that, it's to go bishop d6. It's the second most common move in the Explorer, but it's going to throw a lot of people because no one really plays this move. And just to show again a sample game in this line, knight c7, king f8. If white just takes on e6, I think this invading knight is actually really annoying. If he takes on e6, then black can develop smoothly. If he, again, just cashes in on the material, it's okay, but at least the invading knight is gone, and it's not so bad. Black has got quite good development. So white's probably best idea is to actually press a little bit. And the g6 is going to come at some point in case white goes here, and it also is to block off, obviously, this sort of prophylaxis. So this is, again, just a sample game of, in this position, white decided to cash in on the material advantage. Queen a5, queen, and this is, in this particular position, black managed to swindle something. He managed to find a route in with his queen, and suddenly black won. So as we see here, this is actually atomic chess bot doing getting a win against the 2100. So just to recap this line again, we've seen knight f3, e3, d5 in chapter 1. That's quite good, but if you do play e6, another way of avoiding that main line we discussed where you're groveling for a draw is to go bishop d6. And Okay, now white might not go knight f3. He can also go knight h3, and it's the same idea of it's not quite as powerful as this, but it's the same idea of just going straight in for the kill for f7. So I'm sorry, I've just we've gone on to the next chapter already. RKQ. So knight h3. Now f6 can be played, and as we'll see, because this is going to be my prep for white, after f6, knight f3, c6, white is actually doing okay. These pawns, the pawn sort of blocks the queen's development a little bit, and that's why h6 is slightly stronger. Knight c3. Now, a very natural move to do is c6, but actually slightly stronger is e6, because that's straight away a mate threat. So e4 blocks the queen, and again, this is just showing a sample game. Queen f6 is a very interesting move in this position. If white tried to block with the knight, there's queen d4 with a fork. So queen f6 is actually a big threat. Similarly, you can't go f3 or f4 because there's a threat here. So queen f3, queen f4. So this was actually a game between myself and Variant Bunny, and I was watching a stream. Have fun, Redindus. I'm going to pronounce it like that to be diplomatic. Was playing black, and I said, well, how do you play against this knight h3? And he played this on the stream, and so I copied him and actually did okay, and I think I might have won the game even. So you get your queen in, and then just slide your king over to d8, and it might vary at some point from the actual game. At some point I might just say, play what's the best theory move rather than, but I'm not sure if I... or maybe this is what happened in the game, I'm not sure. But okay, so it's just an interesting... It's a very unclear position, and it's just good. The purpose of this is not to win out of the opening, it's simply to know the opening. So queen f6 after is actually a very strong threat, because you're threatening mate, but you're also threatening to come into d4. So it's a very nice move. Now, so that's going straight for the kill with knight to h3 or knight f3. There's another way of playing actually. So that's sort of my opening as black. As white, I often play knight f3, knight d4. Oh yes, Baku says why not queen d4 anyway, because then the queen takes on f7 and explodes the king. So queen d4 and you lose. And this is something I should say for those who are completely new to Atomic is explosions are even more powerful than checks. So even if someone checkmates you, a checkmate doesn't count if the opponent can then explode your opponent king the next move. So exploding the opponent king is better than checkmate even, let alone checks. So because a checkmate is a threat to explode the king the next move, which can't be avoided. That's the way to think of a checkmate. So the real aim is to explode the opponent king. So knight f3, f6, knight d4, and the purpose of this move is to come into either f5 or b5, and it's quite nasty. You're targeting a lot of sensitive squares. And Abhijit Go says, I like Atomic a lot. Yeah, I haven't got any resources on Atomic on my stream. I've only had a couple of Atomic streams historically. It's really impossible to stop all these threats, or it seems like it is. But there is a very cunning way that black can actually thwart these threats. So if you just do c6, the knight will come in here and just blow up your whole king side once you defend e6. But there's a very cunning move black has here, which is very important to remember as black, and that's knight h6. So what that does is it protects this square, but also you can't just jump in here, because then this is just going to be checkmating. This pawn has to move, and then you come in here and the queen is trapped, and it's checkmate. Okay, I lose my queen, but I'm checkmating you. So this is a very nice move. You have to protect this square. So it's defensive and attacking at the same time. And when I first started Atomic, I always used to play f3, and I was taught actually f3 is blocking out this dangerous queen, which can sometimes come in and do all sorts of damage. So the correct move in this position for white is h3. And then black has actually a lot of ways to defend, a lot of ways to defend against the threat of knight coming here. So if knight comes here, black will just take it. Black comes here, how do we defend? You could go here, you could go here. You could even go here for a counterattack. You can even, I think, go e6, if I'm right. Knight b5. So there are really a lot of possible moves for black in this position. But the best, according to the engine, well, it says knight c6 at the moment. The most common move played is c6. And so what should white do in general? Well, in general, the best thing to do is e3. I mean, so against knight c6, you go e3, and it's straight away a mate threat. You're threatening to come here with check, blocks, queen here, and it's checkmate. So that's quite decent. If he moves the knight to a6, similarly, you go e3. So e3 is a go-to move. If he goes b5, again, you go e3. It's a checkmate threat, so you do it. So probably the one move where you don't necessarily go e3 is c6. And in that case, you go knight c3, and the idea is you're going to sack one knight here, it gets taken, and then bring the other knight in. So if he tries to defend again, then you can't, so then we go e3, and the plan is just to develop. If he goes d5, bishop d3, there's a very lovely trap here. So you're threatening to take this pawn and win a piece and a pawn. And if he does a move like knight f5, there's a very beautiful trap here, which I've won many games against strong players. This is actually an instructional video I'm doing, so I can't take challenges. Sorry. And RKQ says e3 is normally played in my games rather than h3. Ah, yes, I should come to that. You're right. So the beautiful move here is knight e6. So it's a fork on the queen and the king, so it has to be taken. And then queen to g4, and you're threatening to come in here. And however he blocks it, again, a very nice move, bishop to g6. If he just moves the king, queen takes e6 is mates, he has to take it, queen comes in, and it's checkmate. So that's why, just going back, knight f5 is not a good defense. Against f5, there's also a mate, because there's queen h5 here, queen g5, and this pawn is impossible to defend. And if you move the pawn, obviously we take the queen and blow up the king. So this is a really tricky move, this bishop d3 idea. It's threatening to win material, and yeah, and so that's why actually d5, although it looks fine, it may be slightly weak. g6 is, if you look at T-Power's videos, I think T-Power recommends g6 in this position. And just to show, I've never played this much before. Bishop d3, f5. I think I still go for this bishop takes f5 trick in the hope d5, queen f3, bishop f5, just going for knight e6 takes and this sort of thing. So d5 is a mistake again because of the same trick. So so something I play quite a lot is bishop takes f5 in this position. If you actually look at it's not a very common move, but it's quite a good trick. Is g6 not that great? Okay, maybe I'm misremembering lines. So maybe e5 is good apparently, but against e5 you get exactly what you want, which is you just stick your knight in on b5. Oh no, you don't. Oh, you don't do that. Sorry. Okay. Yes. Sorry. That's defended now. So yeah, I'm not sure. Apparently knight b3 or knight f5. Okay. So I'm out of my prep here. Knight b3 apparently. Okay. So white's not doing so great here. Seems like black has found some good defenses. Now, actually, good point just mentioned is instead of doing h3, e3 is actually really interesting. Because then if the knight comes in, you go f4, and the knight can't come in here because of this, with the fork, and you're winning the game. So in this position, this is a sort of interesting position because this knight is threatening to invade but can't invade immediately. And I think we'll come back to this in a later chapter. In fact, this is actually, not knowing this opening is what cost me my Atomic World Championship match. So Baku says, I think I saw that he likes Crazy House the most. And Abhijit goes asking, when is the next Crazy House candidate match I'm going to cover? I'm not sure. Getting 2,000 plus in Crazy House is hard, says Abhijit Go. Okay. Penguin is good at every variant, as everyone is noting. So going back to h3. So h3 is my plan. It's true e3 is often played as white, but my opening preparation was to go h3, b5. If b5, so I said against almost everything you go e3, apart from against c6. Then you go knight c3, e3, and so on. e3, e6, bishop d3. If f5, by the way, then queen h5, g6, queen here, and this actually picks up a piece. You win the opponent knight, so that's quite nice. There's no mating ideas, but it's okay. But if knight f5, there's knight takes e6, so winning a pawn, but you're giving black a little bit of development. g6, and then, yeah, g6, it turns out here is a terrible mistake because of bishop f5. And this bishop can't be taken because, again, the queen comes in with checkmate. And then here, same pattern. And if you move it, then you could just win the queen, but even stronger, I think, bishop d7, king here, and queen g4, and you're coming in with checkmate. If the pawn blocks, then you come in here with checkmate. So this is actually this is my opening prep as white. Originally, knight f3, knight d4. Or this is what I used to play a lot as white. And I've shown you what I was planning as black in defense. Okay, so my first match in the Atomic League was against Manan Girdha, 21, and I was like a 1700 player at the. I don't believe these ratings. It says I was an 1800 player. Okay, but I always considered myself the underdog in these matches in the Atomic League. Because I was playing against players who played thousands of Atomic games, and I just played maybe 600 or so. So he did knight h3, and what was my prep for knight h3? Of course, is to go h6. You have to stop the knight from coming in here and invading. But you don't go f6 because you want to keep this diagonal open. Okay, so he goes e3. What's he threatening? He's threatening to come in here and here with checkmate. And what's the response to that? Almost always, whenever white goes e3, you go e6. So I did e6. Knight c3. Now, if my bishop is open, whenever he goes knight c3, you can actually go bishop b4, so you can never move that knight and threaten all the nasty things he wants to threaten, because you respond with checkmate, blowing up the opponent king. So because this bishop is open, I can respond to knight c3 by pinning it. So I did. Queen h5. So I've got to stop the mate, block the mate, so I did that. Bishop b5, I have to block the mate again. Queen e5, and the queen is threatening to come in here and sack on here and win a couple of pieces. But it's also, yeah, threatening to come in here and just take this and checkmate me. So this is quite powerful. I need to defend. There's actually a very nice defense here. You can't just mess around with, f6 or something. If f6, the queen comes here and he's winning a couple of pieces. But there's a very strong defense, and this is a really important idea, so let's show it. It's to defend with a counterattack, it's a mate threat. And if he blocks, a second mate threat. And now you can just take off this really dangerous queen and you're okay. And that's what I did. Queen takes d4. Queen takes e5. Now, for some reason, I've added some games between Grand Lapin and Fast Tsunami, which actually followed this line. But so this is what the good guys do. They do castles, knight a6, bishop e2, bishop takes c3 is possible, and I think the point of that was just to clear the square, the b4 square for the knight. So b4 to block that knight coming in, d5, f5. So this is just showing you a sample game between two good guys. So this is a sort of, so notice this idea is just to clear this square for the other knight to come in. So we've got an invading knight, and the bishop checking along the diagonal. He gives away, so knight takes pawn, renews the check. So this is good. This is some nice prep for black. And the thing is, black's got an extra pawn, and so white resigned. So the point of this isn't to look at lines. The point of this is to look at the means, the attacking ideas, the means of getting in. So one key idea is something to do with getting in on the b4 square, something about the diagonals, and so I'm not interested in lines. This I think I'd seen this. I was just showing you just stuff I'd maybe looked at. Bishop f8 is another idea in this position which Stockfish at some point recommended, and just to get your knight into the opponent position. But then white also gets his knight in. So these are just some of the ideas I'd actually looked at before the match. Because I did take the prep. I don't always take the prep seriously, but I've taken the prep quite seriously because I was new at Atomic. But okay, my opponent played d4, so at this point I'm out of theory. So I played a5. Here I just develop. I don't mind actually if he takes this because he loses his own bishop and my knight comes in. So he doesn't take it. And I go e5, knight e6, takes, and I'm just showing how the game developed. Okay, I withdraw this bishop and I move the knight in. And I'm just explaining why did I do this is because I'd seen that Grand Lapin Fast Tsunami game which I just showed you. So this is a nice move because I can't take with the pawn or he mates me. If I take with the pawn, he mates me. So I take with this knight to keep this knight active. And he castles. And I win a pawn. I got to get out the way of. I could be losing a lot of pieces here. Just simply rook takes, pawn loses a piece and a pawn. But he does this check first, and that actually lets me get out of dodge. Bishop e3, get my king out of dodge, and now I basically I'm taking over because I've got more material, and it's just yeah, I'm just using my king to block one of his pawns, and I queen with checkmate. So I won the first game. In Atomic League, it's best of 4 it's 4 games, not best of 4 games. 4-game matches. So game 2. Because you guys have seen my prep, you can also see like what I was thinking. F6 and knight d4. You see, this is my prep. H3, b5. Ah, so just like my prep. E3, e6. Now what do I do? Bishop d3. So ideas of coming in here and winning material. Ooh, nice move because he's threatening to win my queen. He's threatening to checkmate me. So, and if I do just this, he just got bishop takes pawn, winning a piece, my knight and my pawn. So very important move here is to realize I can take this bishop by capturing here. And this keeps my threat on h7 alive. And RKQ says theory is b5. Hi there, Frappuccino. I'm not sure where the theory is b5, so I'm out of. Hi there, Hystrix. Okay, so knight here. I didn't know what to do. Maybe I was afraid of the knight coming in here and so on. So I just got rid of this knight. H5. Now I should be doing okay here, but maybe I didn't play the middle game so well. D5 and D6, B4. Okay, so what's my reasoning here? Okay, so his queen is trying to come in, so I'm seemingly maybe I should have done more to stop his queen coming in. Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I'm not going to take challenges. I mean, I really appreciate the challenges, but we're doing a study stream. So anyway, I do see four. I guess I'm trying to just claim some space, but I do let his queen come in, and that. Okay, so what I missed, really important move. Queen takes h5. The queen is gone. No queen invasion, and I'm fine. And unfortunately, I missed that, and now I need to play this well. Knight c3, queen here. I have to just sack 2 pieces to get rid of that queen. Was there something else? No, I think that's it. And now I'm just material down from having it. And now I just lost another pawn here. Just trying to get some activity with the rook, but he's got too many pieces, and he finished me off nicely. So that was game 2. Game 3. Okay, knight h3. Remember our prep. h6. d4. And I think I remembered if d4, just to grab the center. If he's grabbing the center, d4, e4 to grab the center with d5, e5. That was my understanding. So I did d5. E6 apparently is the main line, as that's also good. So d5 is okay though. E4, e5. Maybe e5 here is a mistake, but I didn't know any theory here. Knight a3, c6, and yeah, c6 isn't good. So b5 is much better to just shut down that knight. But c6, the problem with c6, I think, is exactly what he showed, is he can just bring that knight in, and if I take it, this is the problem. The bishop comes in, and if I block here, this takes here, and I'm already mated. I mean, king e7, and it's suggesting, well, just queen f3, so if I do f5, oh, queen a3, just using the power of that queen. And there are other ways of doing things as well. So very dangerous. I can't take that knight, and if I don't take that knight is invading my position. So it's a tough position. So I just go for a counterattack. Queen h4, queen g4, maybe try and win a piece. But nope, he's not taking my queen. Just try and make sure I don't lose too much. And he just wins my rook and pawn, doesn't go for anything else. Apparently even knight g5 is another idea for him, because and then take here next and take here next, and I can never take that knight or I lose my queen, so even the best move here is just to sack the queen. So anyway, so this is just really bad position for black, and I'll just show how white finished me off. I've lost a lot of material. Running with my king, okay, and I just resign here. I'm down a rook, I'm down pawns, there's no hope. So that was game 3. So at this point I'm 2-1 down in this first match. Okay, knight f3, knight d4, I'm back to my prep. h3, b5, e3, bishop d3. And again, knight takes. So we're repeating the same line, it seems. Bishop takes f5, h5, d4. But now I'm going to be very careful this game not to let that queen come in. a3. The purpose of this is just to stop the knight coming in here. Okay, I need to shut down. So you always have to be aware, like how to shut down dangerous diagonal. So if the queen, bishop's a dangerous diagonal, block it. Now, what's the idea of this move? I'm just trying to remember. So this, he's attacking my bishop. I decided just to take it. Okay, so I'm not really doing that great this game. I'm threatening his queen. But try to remember. He can just take. So why can't he just take here? If he just takes here, so I have queen c2. So I'd forgotten this, but I had ideas in the game. Queen c2, and that's hard to defend against both those threats. So yeah, I did have. So why not queen c2 immediately? Because obviously this diagonal is shut. So bishop c4 first, c6, invade with the bishop. Invade with the queen, just hoping to Not quite sure exactly where my... Oh, I know what I was hoping to do. I was hoping to come in here and come in. That was my plan anyway. He allowed it slightly by going g6, and he allowed me to continue with my plan. Queen a4, bishop b5, and here, complete oversight. It's game over. Takes. And it's checkmate coming in the next moves. But I completely missed it. I instead went here and just went for material. This is just to block out the rooks, and then because he didn't push that pawn, I win a pawn and an exchange. And well, now I'm a rook up, so this is just a little endgame, not too difficult to finish it off. And he resigns. So that was my first competitive atomic match, and I drew 2-all. So my next opponent was going to be Riptide 3609. So I went back to my prep, and I planned some new things for black. Did I? This line. We saw this line. If white goes h3, black has a lot of options. If white goes e3, the best move is to go knight g4, and then still a lot of options. But sometimes what white can do is just go here, taking is forced, and the game begins again, and it's a slightly less theoretical kind of play. Knight c3, c6. So slightly, I mean, 2 aggressive pieces have been taken off, so things are slightly calmer than the initial position. b3. So just another idea is d4, d5, e4, knight a6. So knight a6, we're threatening to come in here, but the idea is also if knight b5, bishop g4, f3. Okay, so this is a little bit involved, but the idea of this is even if we let this knight invade, it's actually okay to sack the queen for it. So this is kind of quite surprising, but you're getting a very aggressive knight yourself. So actually, this position is not so bad as it would seem for black. In fact, the engine even slightly prefers black. But I knew that my opponent played b3 more often, so that's what I was really preparing for. And e6 is always a good move, developing your bishop and queen. I'd seen some earlier games where someone had played queen a5, and this is interesting because the threat, if white just ignores the threat, that's not a good move. Queen comes in here and wins a couple of pieces. So, and if queen, threatens to win a couple of pieces, queen f3 is good defense, and then d6. Okay, so it's not such a clear position. d6 or e5. Okay, but black is doing okay is the point. But e6 I think is more logical. e6, g6. If this, just take. If this, just this. Okay, so the point is you're keeping the pawns. You're stopping the queen coming in here, and the point of this, the queen can't be taken because bishop takes d7 is mate. So d6 to keep things in check. So this is just a sample, a sort of like a master game or sample game that I was looking at. Takes here, takes the bishop. Okay, so and then you invade with the queen, and bishop takes here, and you come in. Okay, so this is the sample game, but the point of this is just develop and obviously stop his knight invading and try and invade with. If he goes d4, maybe invade with your knight. d4, d5, knight a6, but otherwise just try and keep a good, everything on the third rank and defend everything. So okay, these are sort of some of the ideas I was having. I have a lot more prep. This is Riptide against Levenia. Knight h3. So I'm afraid this is going a bit deep, but if knight b5, this doesn't work because you get Oh, so knight b5. Okay, so knight b5 is actually interesting because it's guarding the usual fork square. But you can do this and then take here. Now you might ask, why didn't I go straight to here and take here? The reason is because this is actually blocking up the development of the light squares of this diagonal. So you provoke this kind of block, and then you go here and you win then a piece, and then you lose a piece here. But okay, this is just an interesting line. Bishop b4 check, king here, and again, black gets a playable position. So that's the threat. That's why e4 is played to stop the queen just swinging over. A6 to stop the knight invading. And in this position, Riptide had played a move which wasn't very good, which is queen g4. So I just wanted to know there's a nice move against this. It's just queen h5, queen h4, and you win a piece. He defends against the mate, and then you win a piece. Probably stronger was king d1, and then win a piece. So this is just again a sample game. We're just going to just quickly play through it. So he's threatening mate, check, invades with the knight, just defend, gets out the way. Ooh, looks dangerous, but just block everything up. Block the diagonal and invade with the rook, and it's all going to be over. Okay, so that was my plan against him as white. How about as black? Now, as white rather, myself. I decided to change opening from my first match, and instead of going here and here, to try a new opening, knight h3. T-Power has a long sequence of videos about knight h3 on YouTube, which I highly recommend. And we could go quite deep, or we could go less deep. So what moves? So as we've seen before, h6 is the best move. E6, knight g5, f5 is not so good. The knight doesn't necessarily get in immediately, but this knight is annoying. Eventually you have ideas like going here, and the queen is trapped, because if it comes here, pawn takes pawn wins the queen. And the way out for the queen is to come out and develop this way. And I don't know, I'm just going to, I mean, I wouldn't, you could also just go for the material and defend. This is another way of playing things. And then important defensive move, check, to get rid of that queen. But okay, this is just an example game. You try and push a passed pawn, and then you'll win the game. This is just an idea. But okay, f6 is what I saw my opponent played, and this is a weak move. If you see your opponent plays f6, knight c3, c6 to stop the knight invading, and then e3. And white's got very good development of queen and bishop, and lots of really dangerous ideas. And almost anything black does here is there may be refutations to it. So let's look at some of the lines first. I mean, I've got a whole sequence of things black could do here. Okay, e6. G5 is worse than f6. G5. Yeah, so what's wrong with G5? I guess G5, yeah, you're right, hadn't really looked at this. So the reason why G5 is bad is because the queen could come to H5, I'm guessing, at some point. So E3 is immediately a mate threat to come queen H5 and takes F7. And I see two possible defenses, H5 himself or knight F6. The problem with H5 himself is then we have queen here and we're threatening to come here with the fork, but he can still do knight F6. But then knight takes g5, and the mate threat is renewed, and then queen d5. And if he does knight f6 first, then still knight takes g5, and there are a lot of... I'm threatening to come in here with mate, so he has to play h5. But then again, I go queen f3, he has to defend, and then queen d5, and it's mate. So you're right, g5 is weak in this position. What's very important about it is this diagonal. The pawn might be needed on g6. So yeah, if your opponent plays g5, that's also but I knew my opponent played f6 here, and so I planned knight c3, c6, and now black has got a lot of things he could do, and let's just show why they're all bad. After e3. Okay, there's e6. e6 is almost always a good move after e3. e3, e6, automatic. Now it turns out in the match I think I forgot half my prep, but knight b5. Oh, let's look at some other variations before e6. Let's look at e5 first. Let's look at e5 first. e5, knight g5 is strong because you're threatening to invade with this knight, and an invasion is nasty. And if f5, apparently h4, but suppose he takes this knight. You straight away have mate with queen g4, and there's no way to block this diagonal. So that's why knight g5 is the most powerful move after e5. Let's look at some of these other moves. There's g6. Now against g6, this is very nice. You want to go queen here and queen... sorry, that's not right. What do you want to do in this position? Okay, let's see what I've forgotten what the refutation is myself. So you go knight g5. Oh yes, I know what it is. You're going to try and exploit this. You go knight g5 anyway, and the point is if he takes it, you then go knight d5, and if he takes it, you then go. Oh, I was going to say you go queen f3, which you can do, but it's the same to go here first and then queen f3. And this is really pretty, and then you have this. So the point is he could take it, but then you have mate. So against g6, you go knight g5 first just to open up this line. And the point is this: if this is taken, you go knight d5, and then this knight can't be taken. And if you go something like e6, then obviously you're winning the queen. If the king comes out, it's getting mated. So you're winning all his pieces. Hi there, Katask. So g6 doesn't work. Okay, let's see what else. We saw e5. So e5, we go knight g5 as well, and again we expose this file. So you've looked at e5. What about d5? d5. Okay, well, engine is saying knight b5, but in my analysis I had knight g5 again. Same kind of idea. Takes, queen here check, and queen here. He has to block with a bishop or a pawn, and then just queen c7. We're winning a bunch of material. Notice if he blocks with the bishop, there's an even stronger move, which is knight here. And the point is, if you take that knight, then bishop b5 check, knight here, queen here, threatening checkmate. But when you take that queen, you can't take the queen. That's the problem, because it would destroy your knight and it would put you in check to take the queen. So you can't take the queen. So okay, so knight g5 is often powerful. What other moves do we have here? We have knight h6. Why not go for a counterattack as black? And that doesn't work because of knight d5, protect the e-pawn, and just hop in with the knight. And again, you can't take this knight because of this standard fork. So at the end of all that, probably and okay, the best move apparently is d5, knight b5, c takes b5, knight g5, and then just don't take it. Just go bishop g4 or something and block up that diagonal. But okay, but what I want to show is e6. e6 is a very natural looking move, and I'm going to show why it's not good. So we go knight b5 instead of going knight g5 first, because this time it doesn't work, because if we came with our queen to here threatening mate, that's great, but we can't come in to we can't go knight to d5 and get rid of this pawn, basically. That's the problem. We can't go knight g5, knight d5. But we just go knight b5 straight away, and let's just assume he takes. He can just do this and then try and develop, and then you just come in and you get this sort of position. We lose our queen, but we come in and we win the queen back. I mean, it looks all rather involved, but basically we're losing our queen, but we get a lot of activity. Notice the queen can't go here because it gets taken, can't go here because it gets taken, can't go here because we take the bishop. So the queen is indeed trapped. By this maneuver, check, attack g7, which has to be defended, and then takes f6. Hi there, Hissy Phone Payments, or Miss Symphony. So just backtracking a bit to this, we're looking at what if black goes e6, knight b5, and if he takes it, queen h5 check, g6, and this is the hook maneuver. Queen to b5, it can easily be defended, and we do this queen sack hook maneuver. So this is very nice. Queen b6 takes it, bishop here, king escapes, and we have mate. Knight to f4, forking these two pawns. So the hook maneuver is not just black groveling for a draw. The hook maneuver is actually winning this game. And the only way to avoid losing is if black goes here, and then white just wins all the material, totally won. So okay, this is my preparation for white. So for my match against Riptide, I'm going to go with knight h3. Okay, so now let's see the actual games. Now game 1 I actually challenged Rated, and after the game we saw our prep for black. Knight h6 takes, and develop the knight, and c6, and b3. So I was in prep here, e6, e3, g6, and this is the idea. I just put all my pieces on the third rank and play a kind of solid defensive structure. d5. Oh, I'll just take that knight. And I mean, I'm probably out of prep by about now, but it feels like a very playable position. And just not letting his pieces invade, and slowly. A nice move I found here: bishop h3. He can't take it because he loses his queen. But his queen has nowhere to go, so he does this. Just trap the queen here, and I'm winning. He's losing a piece here, and he's losing a pawn and exchange. So yeah, I'm just doing very nicely. Okay, he gets a pawn back, but I'm basically a rook up in this position, and threaten mate. Just take the open file. Okay, now I've gotten a rook. I'm gonna just push my pawns and checkmate. But my opponent was quite disappointed that in the Atomic League one should play games casual and not rated, so he didn't want this game to count. And I thought it should count anyway, but I said, well, let's just ask the arbitrator afterwards whether it does count or not. But we'll play an extra game just in case, so if it doesn't count, we'll count the 5th game. So here's game 2. Hi from Kathmandu, Nepal, Anupo Krell, or Finlet on Lichess. Greetings. So I'm just giving a rundown, basically, from the beginning of the video, introducing to Atomic. So, and now I've done my introductions, I'm getting into some prep for these actual competitive matches I played, and how the prep actually panned out. So, as white, knight h3 was my prep, and he goes e6. Okay, so that was actually the sideline, because knight g5, f5, and I'm, okay, this is okay. I mean, it feels quite good. At some point I can sack on h7, but I need to make sure I'm safe. I can't sack on h7 immediately because of this, and then this. Very dangerous. But at some future point I might sack on h7, win a pawn. Win a rook and a pawn. Okay, so I did this. I think I was still in prep here, probably. Just blocking off that bishop, and then sack on h7, and he hasn't got anything. Just take his queen. I feel like I'm material up. I can give away some material to just get rid of risks. Again, going for material, just winning a nice piece there. And I think he just resigned. He's so much material down. So going on to game 3, but actually 3 out of 5 because it might be in game 2. And again, I'm in prep. And we know what I want to do in this position is just... Okay, but now in this position he actually lets me come in with the knight, so I'm thinking that's really good. But then he actually stops me again. So yeah, that's a mate threat, I have to block it. And I missed a very good move here, simply d6. D6 is strong, and then he has to probably do this. No, apparently not. Apparently he can go knight b5, and then this. Okay, but okay. Instead, I did bishop d6, which is slightly weaker. But anyway, he wanted to get rid of that very dangerous knight, and so that gave me, I'm a piece up now. The thing to remember though in Atomic is pieces and pawns are worth the same in the endgame. However, pieces can do stuff before the endgame, whereas pawns can't. I mean, pieces are more flexible. Okay, so I'm up quite a lot of material here. I just need to just simplify, as it were. Am I up a lot of material? Yeah, I'm up a piece. So, but this game is a travesty. So I'm just exchanging down. Should be very simple. Win with the extra piece. That's threatening actually just to win a pawn and promote. Simplify everything down because I'm confident I can win this endgame. And that was not the right thing to do. Taking this pawn is not right. My king is not in the right position. So just showing what I should have done. Should have put my king in a good position away from his opponent king. And then, when I get a queen, I can... why not do this? Because then he's too close to me. Yeah. So the point is, his king has to... So this position... Yeah. Here. So now the king is far enough away, but I'm just trying to think a second. Yeah, so the point is the king is got to try and stop this pawn queening and then get to my king. So it's very important that my king is not too close. So stepping away at this point is important. And then his king is far enough away that... anyway, if he wastes time moving the king, if he takes here's the point. Here, queen here. Ah. So this is a win for black, but I'm suddenly worried, because isn't he coming in? Why is this a win for black? King to d6? Here? So, okay, I'm going to follow the opening explorer. I don't see... Oh, wow. Okay, this is actually a really clever idea. Okay, because I'd seen moving the queen in to cut off the king. What I didn't realize is you can do the opposite. You can just run your king away, and suddenly, boom, you're cut. Okay, I'd never seen that before. That's really cool. So yeah, and then, but if he doesn't in this, okay, obviously that's the point. Also in this position, if he doesn't take, then obviously you get a queen, and then this is a very classic endgame where you have a queen, and which I'm afraid Math Wiz failed to convert the other day. You just run your king round the pawn, and then you take the king. And you just have to run the king around the pawn in an appropriate way. I mean, here I guess it's quite straightforward. But the point is, yeah, in order to keep contact, you just run like this and like this. In order to keep contact, he's keeping contact with his own pawn, and you can catch him. Yeah, so for endgames, I knew I've done the T-Power endgame study course, as it were, so I recommend you do the T-Power endgame study course. And, okay, at least I remembered this one. So, sorry, at least I remembered this one, but I was low on time. I mean, I know it's 30 seconds, but I was just feeling pressure, and I did the most stupid move here, is I took the pawn instead of pushing f2. And the thing is, I completely knew f2 was winning. I was just low on time, and then it's a draw. So I just agreed to draw. So the score was 3.5 half. after 4 games, but sorry, it will be after this 3.5 hours. So I win. As a spoiler, I win this game as well. I win this game very quickly. And remember, after this setup, you go knight g5 takes, knight b5 takes, and it's all over. So just see that again. Knight g5 takes, knight d5 or knight b5 takes, and bishop b5, he has to defend. Queen here threatening takes bishop, checkmate, and this is a fork, and he can't take it. Okay, this is sneaky, threatening mate, but you blow up first. So this is a sort of thing where you could be stupid and go queen here, and then oops, that would be the terrible blunder because mate, blowing up is stronger than mate. So, okay, so the score was 3.5 half after 4, but we played a 5th one just in case my win in game 1 didn't count, and this is how game 5 went. Hi there, GM Crusher. So again, we're e3, e6, knight f3, bishop b5. Okay, so I think I'm out of theory already after knight f4. So I don't play. I play knight f6. He could just win a pawn by going knight takes e6, and that's what he did. And I'm invading with the queen. It's quite a strong threat. Queen here. He probably has good counterattack though. And he does indeed do counterattack. Now this is just mate. If I didn't have this queen here, so I have to take it. Okay, well at least we got a playable position. Castles, he wins some material, but I get some development. The point of this is if he takes here, I take here, I get some nice development. Oh, he did that, and I think that wasn't well. Anyway, I get, and here he just made a terrible mistake. He went rook e1, and just lets me win a lot of material in what should have been an equal game. And I just messed up the previous endgame. I was determined not to mess up this one, so I just used a kind of zugzwang technique. So this, obviously, if I took it, it would be a draw, but I can just push. Another way of winning these sorts of games is actually sorry, it's not a draw, because actually you can take it and then swing the. Okay, don't take it in this position, but keep the rook here. Swing your rook over and capture here, and then push this past pawn. And the king's too far away to catch it. So in this position here, for example, you could go something like here and takes, and then push. But okay, I went for a zugzwang approach. Thanks, GM Crusher. I will do after the stream. And thanks for joining. So after 5 games, it turned out my original game would have counted anyway, but I saved the arbitrator's trouble by winning again in game 5. So it was a really good result, beating a 1900 by 3.5 games to half in this Atomic League matchup. So my next opponent was another tough 1900. So I was looking at some. So I'm back to the prep. Against knight f3, I'm going to go f6. I'm up against zakipro. And zakipro likes to. I know one of the things he likes to do as white is just to sack that knight early to create weaknesses, and then go e3. And of course, this, as we've seen many times, is this mate threat. And I looked at this game by Highest Cliff, where he went knight f6, but also e6 is strong here. So e6. E6 is a good move, queen h5, g6, and then the counterattack. So this is definitely one idea I was very aware of, but another move is knight f6. And there I'd noticed that zakipro played queen f3, which isn't very good, because queen f3, e6, the point is to develop this bishop with tempo. Bishop here, and then suddenly knight here is a really big threat. So c3. Another very strong idea for white might be, what's wrong with bishop d3? So the idea of bishop d3 is just to come in here with check. So bishop b4, and oh, that just comes in anyway, and he has to sack his queen. So bishop d3 doesn't work. So c3, It's actually not so unreasonable. c3, bishop d6, and my plan is just to do the same kind of idea on him. It turns out there's an even stronger move in this position. I think it's just straight away, maybe it's even almost mating. Bishop a3. If knight takes, then knight g4. The queen has to take. I mean, if king goes here, you're still winning the queen. So queen takes, and then queen comes out here, threatening mate. Rook comes out here. You have to defend, obviously. Take it one move to defend. And basically what we're going to do is we're just going to sack our rook on f2 and come in and mate. And there's nothing he can really do. If he ever pushes this, he creates too many weaknesses on the light squares. I don't know, I haven't got it written in my notes, but g3 I think is just queen here, threatening to come in. And if you don't come in here, you come in here, and it's checkmate. So just taking the bishop first, and then taking the pawn, and there's no escape. Okay, but what Highescliff played is another very nice idea in this position, which is just bishop d6 to g3 here, and taking away that dangerous bishop. Okay, but I'm winning your queen regardless, and again this idea of coming in with the queen and checkmate. So this is some nice prep I had as black, just because I knew that he played this not such a strong move, queen f3, in these kind of positions after knight f6. So even though knight f6 might not be the main line, I thought that's some nice stuff. Okay, but as well as playing knight f3, f6, knight e5, as we saw in that first chapter, I knew he also played sometimes knight f3, f6, knight c3. And what I had prepped for that is to go knight h6, coming into g4, and coming in here. And g4 is standard. And then you go c6, defending against this knight invading. And b4, don't know why b4, but b4, apparently d5 is good, but okay. So anyway, this is just a b4, e6, e4. So I knew that there was a game where Onubens as black had played f5 in this position, and it looks quite nice. What else could be played? If instead of e4 he played knight g5, yeah, f5. So not just knight takes pawn. Knight takes pawn is okay, but apparently f5 is interesting. And the threat is simply just to, of course, remember the knight can never come in because queen here to here is a mate threat. This pattern we've seen a lot. So knight g5 is possible. d4 is also possible. d4, d5. This is also a very playable position. There are lots of, yeah. That's one possible line. Another line is just taking this pawn straight away and playing like this. But okay, e4, f5 I thought was an interesting one. Against e4, f5, and it's a threat on that knight, and then you're going to try and develop the bishop fast, castle, and get an attack along the f-file. Okay, d4 takes, bishop here, block, rook here, takes that knight, get the rook on the f-file. g5 takes, check, you can take it, queen comes in, okay. We just save a tempo by doing that. Queen comes in. Okay, now this is a quite precarious position because, and it's kind of emblematic of all these attacks on the f-file, because if white gets a rook on the f-file, white is winning. So every tempo is important. So the point of this is we're threatening queen here check and takes here. So king b1 is quite important. And any check along the b file you can just block with this. If you try to block with c3, this doesn't work because of queen a4 and there's no defense. And if you try to defend with the bishop, then it's the same. Queen a4, queen to b3, and you could just win a piece, but even stronger, rook f2. And if he goes here, rook c2, king b1, and take, and blow him up. So this is why actually king b1 is necessary in this position. And we can just take the queen, and it looks like, uh-oh, we're going to get mated with like rook here or something, but that doesn't work. Because of queen c3, you try to check us, and we'll mate you. So white has to defend, and the only way to defend is stopping queen c3, so rook d3. So then knight here is interesting. And what's the idea again? I'm trying to remember what the idea is. Like if he does rook here again, what's the move? Queen b4. Okay, so obviously if he does this, then we have this. Rook b3, queen e2, king a1, knight b4, threatening mate, so he has to take it. And in so doing, he opens up everything. So obviously he can't defend with the rook, but why can't he defend with the bishop? Oh, but then queen a4 or queen c4 is a fork, and there's no defense. Again, you can check me, but I have mate in response. So again, he has to get the king out of dodge, but then queen b5 anyway, bishop b4, queen c4, attack on rook b3. So white just holding on, queen f1, and the point in this position, he's just holding on, but then we can go for the material, and we have enough to win this. So we can sack one of our pieces for one of the pawns, use the king to defend the other one, and we will just promote our own pass pawn. So yeah, this is just a nice example of a game where attacks on the f-file. Okay, so we saw my opponent sometimes like to go knight here. Sometimes he likes to go knight c3 and then g4, and sometimes he likes to go. Oh, so this is another idea as black. Instead of going knight h6, I could go c6. And maybe this is objectively not as good, but it was just an interesting game. Very interesting game, very sharp game. He's threatening to take my queen, I threaten to take his queen. He gets his king out of the way, get my king out of the way. Just develop my knights, I'm threatening this, which will be kind of mating, or threatening mate. Yeah, it's mating, in fact. So he has to defend. I take his queen, he takes my queen. Push. He doesn't want to lose a knight, so he tries to save it, but then push again. If he takes it, knight comes in, push, check. Takes here, and okay, so it's just an interesting game. Get the open file, and then everything is going to be winning here for black. Okay, so it's just a very interesting line after c6. I noticed Wolfram had played this against zakipro. So knight f6 was the key thing here. Okay, and one last game. Is it one last game? No, I've still lots of games. Still lots of ideas for what to do as black. I had lots of prep for black, basically. And this one is if he goes c3. Okay, so against c3, go d5. And just grab the center and try and blockade his pieces. Okay, and so this is again just another sample. Okay, I'm not going to. I don't think there was too much of interest here. Yeah, okay. So d5. Okay, I don't think this. It's not too theoretical. It's just fairly natural moves. So we've done our prep for black. What about our prep for white? I think it's going to be this one. But why is it not orientation white? And this is actually a game where zakipro. I think zakipro beat Onyu-Kensei. Okay, so what's not Onyu-Bensei? It's not the real man. So white was doing very well here, but he was doing very well until he he pushed the pawn instead of taking, because taking has all these checks and threats. And the problem with this is check, block is forced, and queen is invading, and there's no way of defending it, because when the bishop blocks, it just gets taken. And there's no defense of queen f2. So, okay, so this is knight h3, f6, knight... Okay, so it's just something to be aware of in this line. Okay, so we know we go knight g5, and we win a piece, and we try and push that past pawn, but still be careful, is the point. And in this position, just taking here is good, because then we can, against here we have check. Here we have check again, and we could just pick up the queen if we wanted to. Or, even better, we threaten checkmate. And if he does this, the bishop comes in again. Again, you might have a checkmate here, but we have a blowing up your opponent king. So checkmate is not the end of the game, as it were, in Atomic. Takes the queen and takes the bishop. Okay, so this is just completely lost. Okay, so that was my plan as white. Knight h3 again, just like in the second match. So zakipro was going to be my third competitive match. So knight here, and he did exactly what I was expecting in terms of sacking the knight. So what I do, e6, queen f3. And queen f3 is not such a strong move, so the preparation paid off. Knight f6, get that bishop out, simple prep, and threaten mate. Okay, I'll take the queen. Still a little bit dangerous because the rook can come in. That's okay, block it. Hi there, Happiness Bunny. Lubar is streaming the Atomic 960 finals tomorrow. So it's your Happiness Bunny against Vlad. So good luck. Queen f2, rook takes f2, castles, you get the open file. Okay, so somehow he's fought back into it. Maybe I did something not so well. Castles. No, it just seems that he played well. Not sure what I should have done differently. So the point of this is just to stop the knight invading, obviously. Although the knight never wants to move because it's blockading the file nicely. So here, I guess I'm hoping I'm material up. And now I really am material up because he allowed me to take here, and it's all over. I take his knight, and I just have too many pieces. Just get this bishop in and checkmate. Okay, so I win game 1 against zakipro. Okay, game 2. Again, so although in the first match I'd gone for knight f3, knight d4, I went for knight h3. I'd been training up on T-Power's videos. f6, knight c3, c6. And the reason I played knight f3 is because I knew my opponent plays this setup, which isn't so good for black, because white can go e3 here, and this is what they used to play before engines on the old servers. e3, e6, and you just sack everything. Except I missed the move here. Yeah, like knight b5 is the move against e6. Knight b5, so I'd forgotten my own preparation. Queen h5, g6 here, and then a hook. So I'd forgotten all my preparation. Instead I played knight g5 and I got confused. And then even if I do that, I should go... Yeah, I don't know what I should do now. So I'd forgotten my prep, basically. Takes here, queen here, queen here. The reason for not taking immediately is you save a tempo. Whoever takes, it's the opponent who gets to move first. Bishop here. Okay, I win a pawn as well. f4. And this is just a mistake. Everything was fine this game until I played f4. Simply playing f3 is fine, and the game goes on. But playing f4, he just takes it, and there's no way to stop the rook coming in with mate on f1. So I lost game 2. Game 3, again. Okay, he plays c3, and what's our prep against c3? d5. Just grab the center. Okay, this is just stopping the queen coming out this way, and if it comes out this way, we can always block. So it blocks that diagonal, and blocks this diagonal. Knight comes in, he takes the bishop, and now I've got a knight invading. So I'm doing quite nicely this game. So actually, backtracking, Stockfish really likes knight f6 in this position. And the point is if f3, d4, d3, e5, just grabbing loads of space, and it's like black is white. So anyway, I didn't know that, but anyway, so I'm not going to go into the details there. So okay, so f3, this felt like a comfortable position. I get a knight invading, check, just takes off the queens, takes this off, and I've got a rook invading. Anyway, so I need to try and find a mate with the rook and a knight, and that is what checkmate with the rook and a knight looks like. So, and finally, game 4 against zakipro. Again, we've got the setup, except this time I do knight b5, and throw in a check, push. Trying to figure out what's going on here. So here, I'm trying to stop the knight coming in, I guess. So yeah, and I can't just take here because the queen here would be checkmating. So that's why I go h4, and now knight takes h7 is a threat. He defends the threat, but now queen here check. Knight here takes. Have I missed something? Yeah, I think I've missed something. So h4 was fine, but an even stronger move was rook g1. So if this, we have this. So rook g1, strong. Okay, but h4, rook g1, it turns out, is even here strong. Queen f3, knight f5. I'm trying to get in, and so he sees that he can actually win the queen here, win a pawn, exchange queens, and get a lot of safety. So here I've had a beautiful position, which I've completely blown. Probably my last chance to get a nice position was rook g1. Abhijit Go says, thanks for the insights. We'll rewatch it on YouTube. I'm only 1800 in Atomic. Have to learn a lot of theory. Yeah, I'm 1800 also. So this is what I missed. Rook takes g6 this way. Queen f6, then knight takes f6. Bishop f5, queen h5. No way of stopping this thing coming in. So rook g1 is the idea I missed. So now in this position, I'm really just doing. I've got terrible development. My king position, as you'll see, is just awful. My rook can't develop, and my opponent just let me off the hook because in this position he should have probably even just taken the material, and I've got 3 pawns against 5 pawns, and the game is lost. But he let me survive a little bit, and with this move, I mean, what a blunder. I win a piece, and suddenly I use my king to block on a dark square, and I push my own pawn, and I've got a rook up. He's in zugzwang, so he can't move any pawns, so he has to move the bishop, and that frees my rook. Again, I know he's in zugzwang, so he has to move the bishop. I think I could just, yeah. So at some point he has to move the bishop. Okay, pin. Can't move the bishop. Oh, I wish it was his move. Okay, so I rearrange it so it's his move, and now I checkmate. So it was a nice win, 3 games to 1 against the 1900. Thanks to some really solid prep, and our team got to the finals of the Atomic Chess League. And in the final, I would have to play zakipro again. And I just had one other thing I prepped as black. In this line, takes d4, knight g4, f3 here. No, this wasn't prep. This is a game I lost, and I lose this a lot. I mean, this is a nasty little trap. It's a game I lost against Roaring Roars. It's like, God, this is such an annoying trap. Queen d3, that queen is so juicy, and you take it, and you don't realize this is checkmate. Against queen d3, you need to go e6. So bishop g5 can be met with queen f6, queen g4 here, and you're still doing well. And what? So this is an example. If white were to take this, you have knight d3 check, which you can't take because of the pin. And if he moves the king, knight e1, oh, very nice. Knight e1 blocks off the king and threatens f2, and there's no way of defending f2. So it's basically not to fall for this trap, where it looks like you're winning a queen, but you're going to get mated. You have to play e6 first. And you have to play e6. Like, if you play this, you just get mated. So yeah, no real new prep for my match against zakipro. But now my match against zakipro is going to be 10 games. Okay, so 10 games against zakipro, and knight h3. I'm playing this again, and he's still playing this f6, c6, e3, g6, and hopefully I know my theory at this point. Apparently not. Apparently not. So instead of playing knight g5 and knight d5 and coming in with the win, instead I played knight b5 first. And if he takes... Okay, so again, knight g5 looks good, but okay, queen g4, threatening mate, bishop here. So I completely forgotten my theory, obviously, this particular game. Bishop here, check, blocks, knight here, takes, rook here, check, blocks. Okay, I'm still doing okay. I've got an invading bishop, which is annoying. Yeah, this is nice because I can... This is a check, and he has to take it and lose his bishop, and then I win the exchange and the pawn. I'm just trading down basically, and don't want to mess up the endgame. Don't want to let his rook come in and do a perpetual on me, so I block that. Unfortunately, I just about managed to get the win. Was there a more efficient way of doing things? So apparently, instead of g takes f3, rook g6 is interesting. f2, king f1, here. Rook here, check, king here, pawn here. Very simple way of mating. Just so that would have been a cleaner way of finishing it. Okay, game 2. d4, d5, just grab the center. b4, e5, I guess. Apparently knight h6 would have been slightly stronger, and just come in here and yeah, okay, so very important, you can't take this knight because, wow, this dangerous bishop. So knight e5, tricky move. So this would have been another way of playing it. Knight h6 and then knight g4, and if f3, knight f2, and if queen d3, yeah, be careful, don't take this queen. Why not? Because if you take this queen, knight d7 traps your bishop and you're lost. So instead you'd have to go e6 or something, yeah. But okay. But instead of doing knight f2, actually a much stronger move is knight e3. And he takes here, and then I take here, and this is actually quite okay for black. So this would have been another way of playing it for black. But instead I went e5, which looks good enough. e3, push, just trying to keep control. Bishop d6, c4, bishop h2. I'm losing a pawn here, but it's opening up some lines. That's the real problem. It's opening up some lines on my king. So queen d5 to try and block them up. Knight comes in. Apparently, this would have been an interesting way of playing it. So queen b3 can be met with this. And if he takes it, then you have queen c7. This is just threatening mate immediately, so he has to take it, and then boom. So a very nifty combination, queen c7 with this double ideas. So c5 was the pro move here, but queen d5 is just logical. Knight c3. Now here, the real move for white here is knight d2, and he's controlling all the squares around his king. Knight c3 allows my queen to come in further. Queen d3, and I win a piece. And this is kind of okay. So notice how the rook can't come in because of the knight, and it can't come in here because of this. And the bishop in the meanwhile just means this rook can never develop. So, and he just effectively resigned. Okay, game 3 against zakipro. I mean, I know this time there are going to be 10 games, so it's a lot of games. e3, do I play the right move here? No. So this is a problem. I'd forgotten my theory, which was to go knight to g5 in this position. Okay, I went bishop d3 instead. And then I went knight g5, and it's all very sad because bishop f5 is straight away checkmate. If he takes it, I have queen h5 check, and checkmate coming. So, and if he doesn't take it, there's nothing you can do. If d6, bishop d7, king f7, knight e4, hitting this pawn. If he pushes the pawn, bishop to e8, and wherever the king goes, he's losing this one. If he comes up, if he goes this way, he's getting blown up here. So yeah, bishop f5 was such a strong move, and I completely missed it. I did this instead. He took it, queen f3 here, here, queen f6, and I'm not doing badly, but takes the rook, and then I'm just going to push this past pawn. Yeah, I'm not doing badly. That was threatening mate, push, threatening mate again, trying to develop the rook. I'm trying to push the past pawn. But I don't know, he's getting quite a lot of piece activity against me, and it was almost scary. Bishop here, at least I have a block. Knight here, check here, bishop here, check here. Bishop here trying to stop the queen, check. And this is the way I kind of managed to liquidate all his pieces with the rook on the 7th rank and take everything. And, okay, at least then he can't make me with the bishop and knight very easily. And then take his last piece. And win the game. So that was game 3. Game 4, again, f6. Maybe. So here I've allowed d6, which stops my development a little bit, but it's okay. It's not the end of the world. Bishop takes knight. I can go c5 and develop this way. So this is, I'm going for like complications. If this, and in fact this is what happened, then taking here with check. And what I should have played here is c4. Threatening bishop takes d6 and a rook invading. If he goes d7, just take it. Rook d1, threatened mate, and there's just no defense. Incredible. It's a really nice move, this. And if he tries to do something like knight d4, so he still has the d1 square for his king. Rook d8, king d1, just simply take that knight, come in, and checkmate this way. So c4 was a really nice move with the idea of this to follow. But instead I try and just block up his rooks, and yeah, just win. Okay, he takes my bishop in the end. And yeah, I don't know. Actually, he's doing quite well here. And yeah, what was my last? c4 was my real chance to win. This position, he's the one who manages to make the breakthrough, and I'm the one who suffers. And he wins. Game 5. Okay, we've seen this again. I'm still not playing the opening correctly. I'm playing this bishop d3 stuff. So I'm not going to play. I even see this idea here. But in a different position. Check, queen comes in, and checkmate. Okay, so I won that one quite neatly, but not playing my openings correctly. So I guess I hadn't really prepped properly. I mean, I hadn't revised my prep properly. Bishop here, queen here. Just chasing his queen around as I develop, so it's very nice. And now I'm threatening to come in with the queen to check, here, and then mate. So what does he do? He does this, he doesn't do anything. And it's all over. Okay, so we've seen this already. Oh my goodness, what a bad move here. I did king here, and I was hoping take my queen, and then I got checkmate. But what I didn't realize, he has this check, king here, and then he missed it as well. Bishop f1, I have to push it. Bishop here, and he wins. The rook is trapped, but he missed it. But it's a completely lost position, and I think he still won the game. He wins the queen. Because of this threat, I have to do something about it. So I have to free the rook up. I can't save my queen. So I have to do that, and he ends up, winning my queen. And I resign. He's got the queen coming in. Okay, 3 games to go against zakipro. So nice move I found here with bishop a3. Can't be taken. Annoying move. Wins a lot of material. Although I should have probably done this first to prevent him winning material back. I just went straight for the material. And I'm trying to invade with my queen. And I do invade with my queen. And this is actually really interesting. Because I'm actually... So actually when I played this, I remember I'm like, oh my goodness, I've just given up a knight and a pawn. And I was like, no, but actually it's worth it, because then I get my rook into the game. And that's what happened. But if white plays accurately, he's fine. The rook comes in, simply king h1. Very standard, just move the king away. Instead, he got himself a little caught. Did this. And in this position, I've got forced mate with rook to c2. And the reason it's forced mate is something like, suppose f4. c1, king f2, rook f1, king g3, rook takes f4. Or if he tries to run immediately, yeah, then it's very easy. So yeah, rook c2 is a fairly obvious move, but instead I threw in a check. Yeah, checks aren't always best. Rook c2 is much stronger than check. Because now he runs to a safer square. Then I went, oh, no, I did another threatened mate, and then I went threatened mate, and then I went rook to c2. And I thought, yeah, maybe this is okay as well. King g1, bishop f1. Oh, yeah, the move he missed is g4. Because then bishop g2, rook h4, rook c2, he can run here, he can block with the knight, take it, and then he does this. And then it's a draw. I can't do anything. But because he went to g3, the same sequence happens. He has a choice here. Do I move this pawn or this pawn? He has to move one of them. He moves this one to stop the immediate rook here check, rook here, rook takes pawn. But this still leaves open this one. The thing to remember about when is my king safe is there has to be a square such that all the... 4 empty squares such that all the things adjacent like this are empty. Something here is fine. So these 2 pawns are both in the danger zone, which is why if he'd done g4 here, get the king out, knight here takes, and this, no pawn is in the danger zone. So even though this pawn, even though he can never come, yeah, there's no pawn here, 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 or here. And this is even in the middle of the board. You need 4 empty squares such that there's no adjacent squares. So you can't... If that's all empty, then you're safe. Okay, but what happened in the game is he played g3, and minor mistake costs him the game. Hystrix, I think, just sent a message, something about an atomic symbol at, and I think it's at 6 o'clock tonight, but I haven't seen the message, so let me just check that. I'll let people know. I'm sorry I'm not taking challenges right now. I'll just show people because I think people will be interested in that who are watching an atomic stream. Okay, 2 more games to go, and I'll just show you that message actually just right about now. So we're hosting 2 atomic simuls today at 7 and at so Vlad and Hystrix at 2 p.m. Eastern at 4 p.m. Eastern. So that would be at 6 p.m. UTC and at 8 p.m. UTC. So at 8 p.m. European time and at 10 p.m. European time, I think that means 8 and 10. I think that's right, yeah. Or 7 and 9 UK time. So yeah, this is just a study stream, so I'm not going to play against anyone. I mean, I have 53 chapters to show you, so we're doing some really good studying, instructive studying of so for the very last game of Atomic, rather, not Crazy House. I'm so used to doing a Crazy House. So for the very last white game against zakipro, I said I really want to do my old stuff with knight f3 and so on. And this should be completely winning for white, because I get to... I either get an invasion or I get a free rook. I should have probably gone for the invasion, but okay, I went for the free rook. Defends against his invasion. Okay, this should be very nice for white. Except, okay, I'm losing a pawn there. That's my king to d1. Ooh, I'm losing a piece. And suddenly this king is on an open file, not doing so nicely after all. And this is a key move. Bishop h6, threatening to invade. And if he takes it, king e2, and I'm getting my rook to the file first. Tempo is important here. Instead I go knight, I develop the knight first. Still, bishop h6 is good, but okay. Instead I go bishop here, and I'm trying to bring the knight here. And I was thinking he takes it and then I block the bishop here. That was my idea, which would be fine for white, but instead he checks and looking very uncomfortable. Now I'm bringing my bishop to h6 and blocking. But and I just missed the mate in 1. So the game could have continued. I could have gone b4. Black's got an advantage, but the game's not over. Finally, the very last game of the match. Knight f3, f6, 95. He goes back to what he played in the very first game. e3, e6, queen h5. So not queen f3, which was a mistake. Queen h5, g6, queen b5, c6. And actually strong in this position. You could just take here sometimes, but queen back here also looks good. Knight f6 is good. Queen c7, king f7. So I'm willing to take a draw here, I think. So I think if the queen comes back here, for example, I can actually avoid the draw by going king g8. That's interesting. So, in fact, that's what he did. I went back. So I'm kind of offering a draw in some sense. Okay, then I threaten mate, so he has to take it. I threaten mate again, he blocks. I threaten mate again, he runs away. But actually the best move for him here is queen to e5. Counter threat. So I can't do this or it's mate. Because then I have to go king back here. Do I? Because then if he goes... What if he does this? That doesn't work because of this with tempo. And I get the mate. Yeah, I missed that. But this is not... There you can't just do this because queen takes pawn is mate. So this would have been a draw. And king d1 in fact was losing, but I missed the win. And the win was queen to f5. It's a fork on this square and this square. Because he has to block and then I come in. It's just checkmate. Sadly, I just completely missed that. And I went bishop d6, trying to just win the queen or something. Then throw in another check. Because I realized the queen coming in somewhere like here is just far too dangerous. So I just exchange queens and develop. Trying to win a boatload of pieces on g2. Goes b3, that's annoying. But okay, I get an invading knight. Threatened mate on f2, he defends. Okay, so it's going to get... I give away the exchange. Oh, I give away a piece as well. That's not so good, is it? What's the idea? I guess it's tempo to get the open file first. Check takes here, and I'm getting the open file first. And again, I should be doing really well here because I managed to get initiative, even though, like, materially I'm down. I have the open file. I have initiative. And the point here is you can't go to d3. Obviously, you can't go here because of rook here takes here. But you can't go to d3 because of bishop f5, and here, rook here check, and rook takes pawn. So he went king to d1, rook here check, king e1, rook here check, king e2, bishop g2 looks good because I'm threatening mate, f4, and here's a key move I missed. I went rook, I should have gone bishop f3. And the point is he can't step up because I'll take this pawn. So he has to go f2, but then check again, and again the king has nowhere to go. It has to go here, and then you take this pawn. So it's quite a nice construction, this rook and bishop, for driving the king up the board. But instead I went rook d2, check, 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 check. I couldn't see how to make progress. And so it ended up the position repeated, and we took the draw. Probably my last chance to make progress was this position, bishop d3. He pushes, check, bishop here, check, rook here, check, check, check. I mean, yeah, so using the bishop on the third rank controlling things, whereas my bishop was stuck in the wrong positions. Okay, so that was an exhausting match against zakipro, and I won it 6.5, 3.5. And the final match I want to show you, and the prep for that match, this time stepping up a level against Puredication. So a mixture of pure and dedication. Puredication, 2000 atomic player. So I first, as white, I was looking at some prep from Lubars, thinking I'll continue with this knight h3 stuff. But I'll play something quite unusual, knight h3 d4. And what's the idea? If he does knight c6, then to just grab the center, pin it, and this seems like a pleasant position. F4. Okay, so this is sort of, it seems like a pleasant enough position. If he goes knight b4, going very aggressive, go queen f3, and this is actually just checkmating, so we can't go too aggressive. If knight b4, queen f3, f6 is no better, because then queen g4 and you come in and it's checkmate. And f5 is also no better because you just take it. Knight f6 and queen f5, and you can defend, but then you've got queen g3, and again it's checkmating. So knight b4 doesn't work, so that's why. So that's why. Yeah, that was my plan against knight c6. Against e6. Okay, so bishop g. Okay, so this is the important one. e6 is a very natural move. I guess just against d5, just play natural looking moves. I had no special plan. Knight a3, c3, and so on. Okay, e6 is a natural move though because you're developing both the bishop and the queen, and the point of this move is just to block off this queen diagonal. And you might think, well, why not just take it? And that's probably a very decent move. But then we can come in, f5, e4, and okay, we've sacked a piece for a pawn, but we have a really threatening knight which might be coming in. Of course, we can't come in already because, yeah, we don't want to come in. We can come in here, it turns out. It's just about okay. So that's my plan for white. And so you can't take it. So f6 is the other move you can do, and just step back. And okay, so black can get quite a lot of... so a natural move here, instead of doing this, was also just to play e5. And the plan here was just to go straight for this. If ever black were to make the... so it's c6, e4. And if ever black were to take this bishop, just to come in with the knight, and the knight's invading. I mean, this looks good, maybe. Because if it gets taken, the queen comes in. So this is the kind of game where you're very happily sacking pieces to open up lines, to open initiative. So I thought it was quite a fun opening to play. So what actually happened in this particular game? Instead of e5, bishop here check, then e4, e5, knight a3, just takes it. I think taking it is a mistake. I think a6 might be better. Knight here takes a4, and that's reasonable. Or bishop g4, just block it. If ever bishop g4, if ever f5, then move the bishop back. So if ever the pawn goes away from f6, you just move the bishop back to g5. So the reason why bishop takes knight is not so good is you're actually this diagonal, as we see, is going to be really dangerous, and this is what happened in this game with Lubar. Castles queenside and checkmate. Okay, so that's my prep as white, and just to show you another game, this is Atomic Chessbot beating Zeranchis with this opening. So it's a nice opening. So you go knight h3 and then d4. So the more usual moves here are knight c3, e3, but no, we go d4 and block up his queen, and then do this, and then a really fun move from the bot here, knight c4. It's like just leaving everything hanging. And the idea is just to open up this diagonal. Like, okay, take it, you'll open up this diagonal. Okay, instead, Zeranchis took... I mean, I've got all kinds of notes here. b5 is another line you could go for, and then d5 is interesting, apparently. So the point is, the bishop can't come here because we just take it. And we're threatening to go d6, which is a real problem because we're blocking up his bishop. He can't take it because queen takes, d7 would be mate. So he does this, but then he's blocking up his bishop a little bit. And so yeah, this is a quite nice, pleasant position for white. And I won't go into detail. But, okay, so this is just a fun position from the bot. Just, you take my bishop, sorry, you take my pawn and bishop, it's okay, I come in here anyway. And notice, this is not possible because of this. Check, and oh, does this not work? So that's not right, it's queen e2 check, not queen h5. Queen e2 check, no blockers, and so it's mate. So, so from the beginning, just leave everything hanging. I love this move, knight c4. Okay, takes here. I mean, so just, what's the threat? Like, if you do nothing, the threat is knight a5, apparently. So that's... But okay, he takes here, bring the other knight in, bishop here, pawn here. Okay, that's a mate threat, so that's nasty. So you have to take it. Attacks this knight, takes the bishop. Okay, lines are opening up for this queen, but this knight is giving some coverage. Yeah, so queen e2 is coming, and I can't see how to stop it, basically. Queen d7, apparently. Queen e2, queen e6 is the only way to stop it, but then knight takes f6. So it's all over. Check and takes. Okay, so this is some fun line that I'd prepared as white, and I prepared a second line, e3, which I hadn't played before. And remember, e3, you don't want to play the usual f6 because you get mated, and this is what we were seeing right at the beginning. So against e3, the most common move is e6, knight f3, f6, and we transpose to the usual f6, e6. But the advantage of playing e3 first is you've stopped black from going f6, d5. So against e3, I just got some other lines. but if knight f6, oh yeah, knight f6 going for a counterattack, then it's important to know queen f3 is the move. c6, knight c3, d6, knight h3. And black could just take off that knight and that would just be fairly standard. Or if he goes for queen a5 first, b4, king to d8, queen to f5, and just you can trade off queens at some point. Queen to f5, trade off queens. And another move, what if g5? G5 isn't a good move, but the best move is not simply knight takes g5. So knight takes g5, bishop f5 apparently. Okay, but there's a lot, just very interesting, there's a lot better move than that. It's just simply knight here. Takes, and bishop c4 is apparently mating. So why can't we play e6 or d5? So he plays e6 or d5, we take here, and this is a problem. If queen f6 we take here, that's the problem. So why not play d5? Takes, but then the queen can't come out and defend. Bishop f5, bishop e5 check here, and queen h5, bishop g6 defends, queen e5 is a bit involved, but this is what it is, this, and then here, threatening checkmate, and you can't take it. So okay, the main point of it all is after e3, e6 is advisable. Against knight f6, we go queen f3. And if we do get this, we stop d5, and we can now play kind of the mainline stuff, if we wanted to, sometimes called the spam stuff. Which is why I knew that Puredication played f5 in this position. Queen h5 check, queen here, offering a trade of queens. Now my motivation for doing this is in a previous game he'd actually avoided the trade of queens with knight f6, and then we can go straight for the kill. So pawn here is to stop the queen invading and mating, but we can take the queen. Black threatens mate as well, so unfortunately we have to give back the queen, but this is actually quite okay for white, +5. So I was just going for this sort of position. If ever f3, g3, and this is a quite okay position for white to have to play. And in fact it was a way Grand Lapin had beaten him. However, what he turns out he did in the game, and is the correct thing to do, is to take off this queen. Knight b5, and goes for material. I think a6 is also maybe a bit better, because then you don't win the rook. And defend, and this is just to try and, with tempo, get the rook as quickly as possible to the file. So get the rook here, and this is just to save material, because there was always threats of rook takes pawn, winning a knight and pawn. Okay, so this is again another. So we're threatening to win a pawn here, and so you might just take it. And okay, this is another way the line could have gone. But white's doing fine. He's got enough material to win this game, as long as he stays safe. Okay, so as we said, I had two plans as white, two openings. So it's pretty nice prep. Knight h3 and d4, and my other plan was for white was e3 and knight d4 and bringing the queen against f5, bringing the queen out. So that was my plan as white. What about my plan as black? Against knight c3, I mean I hadn't played much knight c3 stuff before. e6 is important. e6 and then knight h6. And then g4 is a mistake, because then the queen comes out, threatening mate, comes back, and you get mate in a few moves. And this is a very nice position. Bishop e6 is d6 is very powerful, because you're threatening to come in here and mate the king. And this is a game, in fact, Puredication against Grand Lapin. So that was my plan for that. Against knight c3, e6 if he brings the other knight out, queen f6, pinning the knight to f2. And also, why can't he do something like knight e4? Just knight h6. It's too big a threat. g4. So not clear. Queen d4, knight takes d4. Okay, so you give up the queen for two knights. Anyway, very unclear stuff. Okay, so d4 is another way of playing. Oh, against e3, also just simply bishop b4, so that knight can never move again. But against d4, knight h6 takes, bishop d6, going for these ideas. And in a game, Puredication would play queen d3, which is a slight mistake, because you can just take it and you're up a piece. Okay, he wins a pawn in exchange, but you get the pawn in exchange back. But actually in these lines there's some interesting... So queen b1 is not so good, because you can go queen f5, threatening to win the knight and pawn, blocks, and then bishop here, and he has to move out, and then queen here. That you can just block, and you're threatening to bishop takes pawn and come in. You're doing very nicely. But even better than queen b1 is queen c1, because that way you keep control of this diagonal. So then if bishop g3, king d1, and you take, sorry, what I meant to say is, if then you go queen f5, that can be met by queen f4. But still, you've got bishop g3, takes some pieces. It looks like you're having to give back the queen, knight b4, check, takes. Okay, I'm trying to figure out what's going on here. I take here, you take my knight. Just trying to develop. He could come in, but we can actually get safe. So he could come in here, but we can actually just slide away. So this is all a very unclear position. And this would be a draw, for example, just repeat draw. Repetition, draw by repetition. So probably stronger than... so instead of going for the material with bishop takes f2, maybe there's a stronger move. Maybe queen g6. Queen d6, knight e4, bishop here, queen here. And it's all very unclear. You could sack your queen for all these pieces, but it looks like the white queen's a bit trapped, but actually it isn't. So I wonder whether this is really okay for black. Maybe white's actually okay. So that was some plans against knight c3, knight f3 to go. Against knight c3, e6, knight f3, queen f6. So knight at c3, c6, knight f3. So if knight f3 first, f6 is necessary. Then knight c3, knight h6, just like I played against zakipro. g5, c6, d4, e6. Knight b5 takes, d4, g6, knight e5, f takes e5. Okay, so we're going to have some kind of battle on the f-file. In this particular game, white made a blunder, and then the queen comes in. So that was some ideas for knight f3, and finally, knight f3, f6, knight c3. That's not finally. There's another one. This takes. Okay, just grabbing the center. This is just another idea. And finally, what about the main line against e3? What to do? Well, just like I showed right at the beginning of the stream, d5 takes, and this is blocks. Lose a piece. b4 blocking off this bishop. Knight here, and we saw this main line earlier. Just castling opposite sides, and yeah, it's unclear whether, but this particular game, black managed to win. So that was some of my plans as white, as black. For my plan as white, I think I had no prep as white, so just going to play the same old stuff. Okay, so here goes. Here are the 9 games of my Atomic World Championship match. e3. So this is the Grand Lapin approach. e3, e6, knight f3, f6, knight d4, f5, bring the queen in, and he correctly exchanged queens. Knight b5, bishop here, blocks, so we're all playing very correctly. f3 to defend, take it, and I grab the material. f4, going for activity, and remember you have to be very active, so bishop b5, threaten mate. If he takes it, he loses his bishop anyway. Quickly castle, so he can't take on e3, gets his king safe, and maybe this is my first mistake, king h1. So I'm out of book on move 13, maybe king h1 was not the right move. But still, I played it pretty decently. Okay, b3, again I'm just out of book here and just not necessarily playing the most accurate moves. Going for mate, it's always a good idea to go for mate. Okay, I lose a pawn doing that, but I realised this because this would open up this diagonal on the king, and I thought that would be quite nice. And it allows me to develop with tempo, and just could develop my knight with tempo, and then bring the other rook in, or just stop his rook coming to that file. Okay, can't stop it any longer, but it seems like I've got 2 pieces for a pawn, and that should be good. Just blockade his extra pawn, and now I've got 2 pieces. I sack one of the pieces and push my extra pawn. Simple. And he resigns. So 1 love up. Game 2. Knight c3, e6. It's all prep. Knight e4. What do I do here? What do I do here? This? I'm not sure. Ah, f5 is actually a move. But I did knight h6. Knight here, then f5. And of course, remember, he can't ever come in here for now because I have... How many times I have to say this? This dangerous attack. Hi there, Abhijit Go. Yeah, a lot of games shown, and we're down to the last 8 because this is the second series of 9 from Puredication. Okay, so he does c3, and I just go in for the kill. No, I really want to come in here and attack the queen, but I recognize the queen is coming out here or here, and here's a mate threat. So I do this. It's a very cunning move because then the queen doesn't have any future, cuts off the squares, and now I come in, and I come in again, and the queen is trapped. These 2 pawns are forked and he's trapped. And so with that, okay, I had to give my queen back for a knight, and I gave away another pawn, but I think I'm up material, and I've got good activity, and my rook's coming in, and I've got an extra rook, an extra piece, rook and a piece up, and he resigned. So that's game 2 down, 2 love up. My Atomic 960 games weren't worth looking at. I did very badly in the... I lost 5 love in the Atomic 960 tournament I played. But I do have a study of the final of Atomic 960 between Vlad and Onibent. And yeah, I've got that in a study on my studies, a public study. And some nice analysis, and there was a video that went with it. So game 2, game 1 I'd won very nicely with e3 and the Grand Lapin approach, and I thought, well, let's surprise him with my second opening. And I did this one. And so the point of this move is just to block up his queen. It's the only purpose of this move. Block up his queen and then go for my own attacks, grabbing the center. And this is just very dangerous. Blocks, takes, bishop here, takes, queen here. Okay, he's got just enough blockers. But what about castles? Bringing my rook in. And he resigns. He's just no counterplay because my knight is protecting the one square that could threaten my king. I mean, he does have this, but it doesn't work because rook e1 is checked. Yeah. So a very good start against a 2000 player, 3 love up. But then unfortunately he found an opening I had forgotten my lines in. And that was this one. e3, I knew to go knight g4, threatening mate, f4, and then I couldn't see what to do. because these two are both threats and neither of them are protected, and how to protect against both. And this one looks more intimidating because it's like going after my king. But if I just protect against that, then he's going after this and he's winning a lot of material. So that's what I did. I couldn't see a way of protecting. Now what I didn't realize is the correct approach is this, then e5. Give away 2 pieces, but black has got good play in this position. So b5 is a key move there. Okay, but instead I did e6 and it's just not very good. So yeah, I won't go into too much detail unless there's a critical point. Getting my king safe. I can't move that knight because the queen comes in and then queen comes in with check. So I have to defend, and now he's got an open rook file. Okay, so maybe there was a move here. Like knight h2, because that's threatening mate. Rook takes h2 and then h5. I think that's slightly better. Anyway, I didn't see that. And I'm just down a lot of material. Trying to get my queen safe. Trying to get some counterplay along the h-file. It looks like I'm going to get mated here, but I'm just about holding on. And here's critical. I saw I had this idea. Threatening checkmate. He takes. Then actually I have mate. Rook h1, check, and checkmate. If he goes here, remember I take here. So you can't take it. In fact, the only defense against this is queen c8, check, takes. No, I don't get this. Forgotten why. Why is queen c8 check working? Queen c8 check, this, then takes, then rook takes, then rook here, and then he has he has a square. He has a square in which he can run in. So these squares, there are no squares adjacent to this square of 4 squares. And so why is that important? Oh yeah, I remember now why it's important. This move is key, queen here, because it gets rid of the bishop. And that means the bishop can't come in and deliver mate later on. So takes, and this is only a draw. So it's the reason it's only a draw is wherever I check this king on these 4 squares, there are no pieces of white behind those 4 squares. So it's a draw. But unfortunately I played bishop c8 here, bishop here, and I lose my draw. Queen h5 no longer works, and I flag. So that was the problem. Queen h5, he just takes. So rather uncomfortable. So I'm 1-3 down, but more to the point, he's found an opening I don't know the response to, and that's what costs me basically the match. So I go back to knight h3, e6. But because of tilting, losing that last game, I just forget my openings. And I play, I mean, e3 is correct, but it wasn't the opening I planned for, which is d4. And then I just forget what I'm supposed to do here. And I go to queen f3, and I just play some utter nonsense. I'm down a lot of material. I'm not... everything is wrong about this. I'm just down too much material, and he gets this very beautiful mate against me. Okay. And again, I just don't know what to do. I'm playing e6 instead of b5. b5 is the move. And okay, it's just a simple case of him finishing his material up, and he just case of just finishing me off. And invading with the queen, and nothing I can do. There we go. Okay, at least I can win as white though, right? So I go back to this opening. So why did I go back to this opening? Because, yeah, d4, I remembered again. Yeah, d4 is my move. Okay, so I remembered it then. Okay, and then I don't know why I played that. c3 was the move. Just c3. And at some point the queen might come to this diagonal. Okay, I played c4. I was thinking of taking on d5 at some point. He takes the bishop. I'm taking, this is just a huge mistake, and I didn't capitalize. So I should have won this. Queen g4 is threatening this. There's no defense. He can check me, I just take it. He can block at some point, just come in, check, check, and mate. Even here, I'm doing very well with queen b3. And there's just no defense. I'm threatening to take this pawn and come in and mate, and there's no defense. If he, for example, does this, just bring the knight in. This is just shockingly strong. Probably the best defense is taking here. So obviously taking here would lose to queen here, checkmate. Yeah. But then the thing to do is just bring the knight in. And castle. And he's being sneaky here, threatening checkmate. Just take it. Put the rook on the file as the king. He's threatening mate again, just block. So this is a very long mate. It's like a mate in 15 or something. So he wants knight here whenever I open up this file. So I'm trying to chase that knight away, and then I open up the file. And then I just come in with the queen. And again, what's he threatening with this move? Lots of things work, just knight b5. And checkmate. So why can't I go... Yeah, I can't do this straight away because of this, obviously. Yeah, so that's what the point of b3 is. The point of b3 is to take this pawn so it's not checkmate anymore. Okay, and then checkmate, yeah. So okay, I completely missed that, and unfortunately I missed this queen b3 idea, even though I knew it was an important idea. And I'm still fine though. Knight f6. But then there's another very key move, which is bishop to g4. Can't be taken, because otherwise that's checkmate. He could get the bishop out of the way with tempo, just trying to save the mate, but then just bishop comes in, takes here as a check. I mean, this is just completely lost. But bishop g4 is important though. Instead, I took the knight, and he does have defense here because he's threatening checkmate. So I block, bishop f4, and then I'm still doing okay. I mean, yeah, I'm still like +5. But then I did a terrible move, just taking here, and this is checkmate. It's forking these two squares, and there's no defense. Obviously, check is met with checkmate. And it just needed a bit more patient play. Queen d4 is apparently the most strongest move. If you do this is just checkmate straight away. What's the best response? Queen f6. Queen f6, just e5, queen here, takes the queen, rook here, get the other rook in, push the pawn. Okay, so this is just very, very good for white. But I went down, and then again I have another of these games I just don't know what to do. I did something even worse, because I realized I was losing the whole time doing this. I did this straight away, because now I've got everything in control. But this is even worse than the other line, because here takes, and takes is just lost. I mean, I saw it in the game, just queen h5, queen here. Such a basic mate. But he somehow let me off the hook, and so I'm trying to defend against this mate. Don't know what to do. Somehow surviving, but actually instead of castles, g6 apparently is strong. And maybe I've got some play. But okay, takes here, and then really the move for him was queen h5, and it's curtains. There's no way of defending the mate. If I just did something like this, then rook h8, king to g7, knight takes pawn. So queen to h5 is really strong, but this is also good. Just winning all the material. And I resigns. And the final game of the match, at least I'm white. What can I do here? Go for the e3 line again. Do I do the right thing? c3 is correct. b5. And yeah, the idea I missed is going bishop d3, bishop g6. That's a really nasty idea in this position. So I did this, and got my king out of the way, so that I'm now threatening knight here. It's pretty decent, because even if he does this, I'm still going knight here and completely winning. So he took the knight. So yeah, I'm doing okay this game. I'd prevent his own knight invasion, and still preventing his knight invasion. Oh, I missed this idea. So I have to sack my own queen. Okay, so now he's doing pretty much okay as well. And I win his rook for my bishop. And I'd say everything's still fine, except I didn't get my king out of the way in the right way. King here is probably the move. Or even knight h4, and then moving the rook to this file. But okay, king c2 is a bad move. Gives him mate threats immediately. Lets him win my rook. And he just gets the open file. Oh, now this is really interesting. So he moves his rook to d2, and this is it. This is what I'm going to close the stream with. This is the final game. Rook to d2, and I have 2 seconds on the clock, 2.7 seconds on the clock, and I flag. Now here's a really fun way to end the stream. We haven't done enough endgames. What if I took this rook and I claimed the pawns are equal if I put all my pawns, suppose he does bishop f3. So actually, to be honest, the way to win this very clearly is to go g5. And the reason for that is because then if I ever go h4, g4. And then he's got a majority. So whatever I do, I can try and push that pass pawn. He can block the pass pawn with his bishop, and he has a majority, and it's a one endgame. I have to move out, and he gets a queen. So he has a majority, and so he wins. So the really easy way of winning this endgame, the engine doesn't see it actually. If you look, it's not even the top 5 choices. This is the really easy way of winning this position, is playing g5. Because what that does is it keeps that pawn on a light square. And that means the bishop can actually just come in and sacrifice for it. Oh, does that work though? Yeah, so at some point the bishop can sacrifice for it, and black will promote the extra queen. Yeah, that works, because if necessary, he'll get, as long as he keeps another pawn still on the board, and I'm sure he can make sure that he keeps another pawn still on the board. So g5 is the way to really put an end to the game. But suppose black plays bishop f3, and of course white immediately puts his pawn on a dark square. So the idea is, if the black pawn ever comes to here, we take it. If it ever comes to here, we take it. If it ever comes to here, we take it. If it comes to here, we take it. And black cannot win with just a bishop. So the question is, this is for chat, is this a pawnetization draw? I mean, you can see the engine, it's saying -10. Is it wrong? Can't we just get a pawnetization draw here? Pawnetization draw is when all your pawns are on the opposite colour of the bishop, so this bishop is useless. Can't do anything. Okay, I'm going to spoil it for you. e4 is a good move. King c2. I'll show you how you can get a pawnetization draw. Suppose you went king b8, king c3, and then king c8. Now you can get a pawnetization draw, because you go king c4, he might check you, go here, bishop e5, just go here, and king here. Now whatever black does, I'll just keep my king next to your king, and whenever he pushes a pawn here, take it, pawn here, take it, pawn here, take it, black can never promote. So it's a pawnetization draw. But black can do better. So with this move, notice that the white king can never step on any of these red squares. Because if it steps on a red square, black can push this pawn. And it can't be taken, because the king's on this square. And if it can't be taken, it means it can be pushed again. And promote. So it becomes a passed pawn. So the white king is actually a little bit constrained. And we can constrain it further by going bishop here. And that means this square is also not possible to go to. And if we step up, suppose we step up, there's a very nice move here. The very nice move is simply put the bishop on b3. And now the king is actually in a box. Can't even go back. And it can't go here, obviously. The king is in prison. If it ever steps on any of those three squares, e3 comes. So how would the game continue? You have to push pawns. The king is in a box, so you have to push pawns. But if you're just going to push pawns, well, you can use one king to blockade a pawn, and then you've got a majority and king queen, or any number of ways of winning. So isn't that pretty? If you go king c3, you're in a box. But if you go king c1, you're also in a box. You could go f5, king b1, bishop here. There's nothing. I mean, I'm just going to maybe just put this. Just keep it in a box. Keep it in the box. Bishop b3. He's in a box. He's trapped. And then this just finishes off the trap. Because here he's in this box. So if he goes this way, no, this is not right. Yeah, this is important. If he goes this way, he's actually even in a smaller box. So it's the same thing. But if he goes this way, he's still in this little tiny box. And if he ever steps onto this square, this pawn checks him, can't be taken, and then it just promotes. Push, push, and you can't just keep your king on here forever because we can take. You're forced to push your pawns. I'll take them in turn. You have to move your king out, and then I can promote. So the answer is there is no draw because this happens at some stage. You get to push, push, and it's checkmate. So it's just a fun little endgame to end with. That even though this, at first sight, might seem like a pawnetization draw, it isn't, because that king can be slowly trapped. So it can't move at all. Okay, so with that, I think we've covered a lot, even some basic endgame stuff, but mainly it's been an opening stream, and probably that's the first time we've looked at openings in some detail. And that covers a lot of openings, a lot of the reasons behind the openings, and basically all my prep from 2020 for 4 competitive matches in the Atomic League and in the Atomic World Championship. So I hope this is useful, especially to under 2,000 players. I think the over 2,000s will know all the stuff I talked about, but I think especially under 2,000 players might appreciate. There's lots of good stuff, and this study, I'm going to put this study with the video and I'm going to put it up on YouTube as well. And it's completely open, so you're welcome to play around with it. And the next time I play a competitive atomic match, you have all my secrets. They're all gone. Gonna have to play something else next time. Okay, so thanks everyone for watching, and hope you enjoy. And if you're interested in Crazy House, obviously that's what I normally stream, and I have a very detailed Crazy House blog. So do check that out. zhchess.blogspot.com